This is really great. Everything is wrong.
Replay. I did the zoom in too on that exercise.
I can see the frame of this and it's completely crooked. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Tonight I have given up on all rules, all audio. I didn't even turn the camera on for the first 60 seconds, so who really cares? Tonight we are talking about my favorite travel experiences. Some of my favorite travel memories. So I'd like to ask everyone to do two things. First of all, let's please acknowledge that Cass has a massive amount of burps tonight that she's holding in. Cass, so just let it rip. If you gotta go, just let it rip. All right, we're all here to support you.
I just ate.
Second of all, I would like to ask everybody to follow along with me. I'd like to ask you to close your eyes, take less than 30 seconds, and just think back to that favorite travel place that you went to in the last 5 years. How'd you get there? Think about the smells when you landed and you got off the plane. Think about your favorite meal that you ate at that little out-of-the-way bistro or the little restaurant that nobody else knew about. And think about that sense of wonderment you felt when you saw that old building or that huge library or that sunset that you do not have in your normal city. And think about who you were with. What made it so memorable? To me, this is one of my favorite questions. And I learned this icebreaker question from the Disney Institute class I took. And I really love it because everybody's got a favorite place that they go to, that they've been to. So I thought, hey, we're not gonna be here forever. And eventually we will be able to travel. And so I thought I would share some of my favorite travel memories and maybe hear a little bit about yours. So I was thinking, and I was talking to you, Cass, about some of the places that we have been. We went to Greece. Mm-hmm. We went for a wedding. We went to Puerto Rico. But what was amazing was we posted this photo. It's still on my Instagram feed somewhere. Mm-hmm. And we went for a hike. First of all, we're like, yeah, we're in shape. Let's do the hike. And I would say like 20 minutes into this hike, we were huffing and puffing. And some granny walked by us with a baby on her back, mm-hmm. and was just like cruising. We're like, what? How's Granny crushing us right now? We posted this photo that's somewhere on my feed of you and me with literally trees in the background. Within 20 minutes, someone was like, El Yunque? I was like, what?
Yeah.
They can spot you anywhere. So you freaks who are stalking and geo-targeting or geo-fencing or whatever you call it, you can forget about it. I'm taking a green screen with me wherever I go. I'm putting it in my background. You're never going to know where I am. All right? We went to Positano. That was absolutely stunning. Very romantic. For anyone who's ever like kind of thought about where should I go for a romantic place, I've never seen a city like this.
Yeah.
So we had a driver who took us from, I think, Rome to Positano. And we started to get close to the city and she was getting a bit nervous, like pretty uptight. She was calling somebody and then she's like, okay, when we arrive, you have to be ready to get out of the car. And we were like, what? Why is this lady kind of like, what is her deal? She got to be somewhere? And then we got into the city and I've never seen a city like this. It's one lane. It's not even two lanes, one lane that goes one direction. And when you have to pull over for guests to get out, every car has to stop behind you. So we stop, there's a baggage handler, he gets our stuff out, we get out, we say bye to the driver, boom, we're gone. Like 30 seconds, hustled out. And then we walk, you're instantly at your hotel, you walk, and it's an entire city built on a cliff. It's like out of a Batman movie. And beautiful colors, I never forget that. Mm-hmm. So that was a really special place where we just like ate and just enjoyed it.
It was like, I remember us just looking out and we just said to each other, like, how is this real?
Yeah. How is this real? How can people live here?
Yeah, for generations.
Yeah, that was one of the places where you think to yourself, like, how did humanity choose this place? Mm-hmm. I mean, that was amazing and we will never forget. Okay, so one of my favorite places that I have been and we have been is India. I have family in India, and I remember going at a very young age, and I remember going with my mom, occasionally my dad. We would never go together. I think we couldn't afford to all go because I think tickets back then were like $1,200 per person.
Yeah, that's expensive.
That's a lot of money. And then to take like 2 or 3 people, it's crazy. So we could never afford to go all together. And by the way, of course we sat economy. I don't think back then a lot of people, at least not the people we knew, were flying business class. So we would fly economy. It's a 22-hour flight, usually with a layover in Germany. And my mom still tells stories about how she took 3 kids with her on the plane, young. And then once you get to India, I still remember this airport where you go down, it's just like packed with people. You go outside, there's throngs of people, and then one of our relatives would pick us up. We went, when I was young, we went there for summer, and I was like, I'm never coming back here for summer again. And I never did, because it is way too hot. But I still remember these, you see things in India that are truly magical, like you cannot fathom seeing them here. You'll see someone, you take them like my sweater or whatever, and say, I would like this sweater with this design made on this fabric. And they're like, okay, come back in 20 minutes. You're like, wait, what? Do you have some magical color selector tool? They're like, no, I know exactly what dyes to throw in there and it'll be done in 20 minutes. By hand. You see just the way that a city has adapted. You think that New York has a lot of people, but it has nothing compared to New Delhi. And you see the extremes of extreme wealth and extreme poverty. And you'll be in a 5-star hotel and then you'll walk outside and there are people out there who are extremely impoverished. And I remember my cousin told me, Paul, when we saw him in India, he said, the way I think about people going to India is if you have any inkling of curiosity, you should go. And if you don't, you should never go. And I really appreciate that because my friends have tried to get me to go to Burning Man. I'm like, no, do I look like Burning Man? No. And they really respected that. They were like, cool. But if you ever do want to go, let us know. I feel the same way about India, where you will see things you cannot fathom from a Western perspective. It just doesn't make sense. But it will also completely change you forever. And Cass, in a minute, I want to ask you what your experience was, because you've been to India 3 times in 2 years. We went together. But I do want to talk about our first trip going to India together, which was about 2.5 years ago. So my family had never met you, and it was important to me that everybody meet you before our wedding. And I think there are a few things in life where you really want to be thoughtful about them because people will remember it for potentially generations.
Yeah.
Like, who did you invite to your wedding? You know, things like that. Were you generous when the call came? Things like that. And so for Indian people, you want to make sure your relatives have met before a wedding. And so I said to you, let's go to India. And you were like, yeah, of course. And then also it turned out that we were going to go and get your wedding attire.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a common thing for Indian women. They go back to India when they're going to get married, even here in the States. They go back and they get all their clothes made, everything custom, and then they bring it back. Because you can't find that kind of stuff here in America. So we went, you remember how long our trip was there?
Oh, what was it? 8 to 10 days?
8 days.
Yeah.
And you met my family in India for the first time.
Yep.
And I have to say that, first of all, on a personal level, this was a different trip than I had ever taken because I had never gone without my parents. So I was going as an adult, like a real adult.
A real man.
A real man. And so that was a whole different ballgame because usually I'd been there and I'd kind of waited, what are we going to do today? And, you know, my mom would be coordinating with my relatives. But this time it was just me. I was making the plan. So it really felt like one of those rare pivotal moments where as an adult you realize how far you've come from being a kid. I do remember calling my mom at one point during our trip and I was like, we only have 8 days here. We have a lot of relatives to see and we're shopping all day. So I was like, I'm trying to make sure I see everyone and I'm inviting them to have breakfast. Like, everyone seems to be blowing me off. Like, they're like, oh, breakfast? Like, how about dinner? I'm like, there's only so many dinners I can have. Plus, we are asleep by 7:30 p.m. because we're jet lagged. And I'm like, how come no one's taking me up on these breakfast offers? Like, did I do something wrong? And she goes, nobody eats breakfast there. And I was like, oh.
Not like New York brunch scene.
Yeah. It's like, they want to have dinner at 9:30 p.m. I'm like, I'm asleep by 7. What am I? So anyway, that cleared things up for me, or for us there. I personally thought we would spend like a day or two shopping for wedding clothes. I've never shopped for wedding clothes. Turned out we spent 8 hours for 8 days. Like every day we were out at the market and at this place and that place. So that was a huge change for me.
And also we did your wedding shopping.
Yeah, we did
there,
shop
too.
for my stuff too. My aunt really loves, you want to tell that story about what I'll tell her. She might be watching right now. So she said to me, Ramit, what kind of clothes do you want for your wedding and what is your budget? So I was like, here's my Pinterest board and I have no budget. And she was like, really? You're the favorite kind of person that I like to go shop with. So she was loving it. She loved that. I think she told all of her friends.
She did a great job. Your whole family did, taking us around. I mean,
they were amazing.
For hours.
Hours.
Amazing.
They knew all the places. They knew how to tell us what was in style.
Yeah.
And what looked good on us and what would be appropriate. No way we could have done it without. And they even, they came with us.
Nice.
Like they took time off work. They came.
And then even your parents after, remember, they went to India and picked up my outfits, which was so nice.
Yeah, you had massive amounts of stuff.
Yeah.
So we have a lot to be thankful for with having family there.
Yeah.
And also just opening their homes up and being so generous. That's a typical thing of people in India. Like we have gone with 3, 4, 5 people from, maybe 3 from my family and stayed for a month. And they give us their bedrooms. They sleep on the couch or the floor, and
they cook for you every meal. Yeah,
take us out to the markets. I mean, I remember one time when I was a young kid, maybe 5. I went out with my grandpa, and when you're a kid in India, you just see these trinkets everywhere. Especially as an American kid, you just see these crazy things you've never seen, and you want to buy them. You know, street food. You want to buy these little toys and games. And I guess I pointed at a motorcycle and my grandpa bought it for me, and my mom was so mad. She's like, why did you ask him to buy that? That's too much money. Why did you ask him? Of course, he was so happy to be able to buy it for his American grandson. But I still remember that little motorcycle that he bought, probably for, I don't know how many rupees. So we went to India. We stayed with my family every night. No hotel at this point, because that would be a big no-no to stay in a hotel when you're in that city. That would be like, they would remember that for generations. What do you remember about the India trip? The first one.
Everyone was so warm and welcoming, and the food, I mean, just everywhere we went, there was just like amazing food everywhere.
Like, what's an example?
Oh, paneer, tandoori. Remember we went to that Loki, is it Loki?
What is
party? The fire party?
Oh, Lordy, yeah.
Lordy,
oh,
yeah. And, you know, when you go to a party in New York, it's like at a friend's apartment, maybe their rooftop, at some bar.
Everyone wears black.
Yeah.
And then they all bring these expensive pastries, and then no one eats them, and then you throw them away. You're like, thanks, that was really great.
And then this party was amazing.
Yeah.
It was like catered with every single type of food you could ever want. There was live music, that huge bonfire. Everyone was dancing.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun.
Yeah, that was crazy. And also, we had no nice clothes. Like, we didn't think about bringing nice clothes.
Yeah.
And then my uncle was like, that's what you're wearing? And then also, I didn't have any shoes. He's like, where's your dress shoes? I'm like, I don't wear dress shoes. It's called sneakers. And he's like, you can't get into this place wearing those shoes. I'm like, ah! Oh, that was amazing. Yeah, you see things like at a party where there's 30 different types of cuisines and 30 different people serving it. The service, I mean, it was crazy. And then also, like, what about things that surprised you, just like walking in the streets? What was your experience there? That must have been quite different.
Yeah, well, I grew up going to Mexico growing up, Rosarito, and it reminded me a lot of that. So when we got to India, just the smells, the sounds, like all your senses are being activated every second.
Yeah.
And I mean, just stimulation all over the place. Like I couldn't concentrate on one thing because there are so many things to see.
Yeah, I remember taking a video, I think our second time, where we were walking through a busy market.
Yeah.
And I was showing people, like, for an American perspective, it is crowded. There are foreign smells you can't identify. There's noises going on. There's even animals walking around.
Oh yeah, the cows in the middle of the street, yeah.
And if you approach it as an American from a Western perspective, you will always be saying, what's wrong with this? Like, why don't they clean this? Why don't they have lanes? And I found myself doing that a few times too. And I had to stop myself and remind myself, like, we have to appreciate this culture from its perspective. And that's why I was showing that video, walking through the market with like thousands of people around us. And I was like, there's something special about this, but you have to be in the mental mind space to be able to appreciate it. So anyway, I thought you were awesome to come and see everything with such an open mind.
Yeah,
because
it was so fun.
Yeah, it could be overwhelming or just like so different.
Yeah.
But you showed up every day with a smile and tried everything, even sulf, which you really hated.
No sulf.
I love. Have you guys ever seen that stuff when you go to an Indian restaurant? They have these little fennel seeds, those green things, by the door when you're leaving. And people, well, white people, you guys don't eat this stuff. Try it, but you're going to end up spitting it out on the sidewalk. I told Cass, be careful, this is an acquired taste. And you were game. You're like, all right, I'll try it.
Yeah.
And then I watched you go. I still have that video. And my aunt was watching, just cracking up.
Yeah. You did a good job hosting.
Oh, thanks.
As well. Like, there's a lot of coordination, and you were kind of the middleman for everything, but you did a great job with that.
Thank you. So I loved going for our first time, and we also discovered some things together. Like, there's Uber now. Last time we went, there was no Uber. So we were actually like pretty independent. We could get around and.
Oh my gosh! One thing that surprised me so we landed in Delhi really early in the morning. I think. Oh yeah. And we got an Uber to
my aunt's relative's house.
Yeah, and Ramit, you really impressed me with your Punjabi. I was like, wow.
Enough to get by in a taxi.
I've never really heard you speak it like in 5 or more sentences, but you did good.
Thank you. I remember going, I don't think you were there, but I was there with one of my aunts. We went to a gurdwara, a Sikh temple. And outside this very famous Sikh temple, you can buy certain Sikh relics, not relics, just like a comb or a kara. And I wanted to buy some for my dad so that I could send it to him. So there's a Sardar. Sardar means a Sikh man with a turban. And he was speaking what's called Pakka Punjabi, like a very village Punjabi. And here I am trying to speak to him. He doesn't speak English. And I'm saying like, what size and can I have this? And my aunt is just watching. And I'm talking to him. I'm kind of like trying to act it out, but also speak. And then I can kind of understand what he's saying, but he speaks, like I said, very traditional Punjabi. And then he turns to my aunt, and in his Punjabi, he says, this guy's hilarious. He's speaking English, Hindi, Punjabi, and some other language I can't even understand. Who is this guy? And I was like, oh my God. So,
you understood that though, I remember you laughing.
Yeah, I was cracking up because Punjabi is a hilarious language. Punjabis are known to be really funny. And the language itself is truly hilarious. So if you hear stories or jokes told in Punjabi, it's like, you can't even translate some of it to English, but it is hilarious. Hearing this guy, I was like, yes, this is classic Punjabi humor. All right, so India, so we did that once. Then we did it again, which was, for our honeymoon.
Oh, yep.
That one we didn't tell people we were coming into town. We had I said this is the one time in our life where we are not going to tell our family we're coming into town. And, you know, I got in a little bit of trouble, but you know what? It's our honeymoon. So we were there that was part of the overall 6-week honeymoon.
Yeah.
And we stayed, I had never stayed at hotels like that before in India.
Yeah, me either.
So I knew some of my favorite hotel in the world is in India. And so I had a bucket list of places I wanted to stay, and we did these magical things in terms of like high-low, you know, palaces of hotels, but also going to a local woman's house and learning Rajasthani cuisine. Yeah. I still remember that. So that was just like getting a taste of different sides of India. The family side, the first time we went, the luxury and adventure side, and then we have some other places that we'll probably go in India that I've never been to myself.
Yeah, so we want to go to southern India,
coffee plantations,
eastern India, basically all over the place.
It's such a different world, and some of these places we look at, we're like, wait, that's India?
Yeah.
Even the people don't look what you would think. They don't look Indian, but it's such a diverse country. So I've loved that. One last place I want to mention, and then I'd love to hear what people are saying, whether it be comments about their favorite place or questions about any of our travel. The last place I want to mention is Japan. So, Cass, this is one of your favorite places too, right?
Yes, love it.
Okay.
My favorite.
We went to Japan in 2017. That is when I started doing Instagram stories. And I was so mind-boggled, blown away, that I was like, I gotta document what I'm doing here, and I started doing it my way. Lots of text, narrative structure, and I wasn't very good at it, but I just was so enchanted with what I was seeing. Now I will rewind, and the first time I ever went to Japan was in college. I went with my professor, BJ Fogg. He invited me to speak with him, and we did a thing where we spoke on a stage, and they live translated it. Oh. And they had to remind us to slow down. Oh. So that was quite a trip. After that speech, our Japanese host, took us out to a dinner, a long multi-course dinner where you sit down on the tatami mats, and I was the youngest guy by far. Most of the folks there were professors from America, and then there were our Japanese hosts. And after like 45 minutes of sitting down, I'm like squirming around. Why? My legs are dying. I don't have the flexibility. And I'm looking around, and all these old professors are just totally comfortable. They're just relaxed and just having their sake. And I'm like, how am I the only guy who's just, my legs are being crushed? After an hour and a half, I looked down after shifting around in my chair, and there was a place to put your legs down under the table. I'm like, ah! Another thing I notice about Americans is they ask the weirdest questions on earth when their hosts don't even speak like that fluent English. So our hosts were doing a great job hosting us, but their English level was very low. And so one of the professors asked this question. Is this freshwater fish or seawater fish? That's a very technical question.
Some Americans won't even know what that is.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And then our host like thought about it, and they go, yes. And I was like, that's probably the best answer this guy could have given. What kind of question is that? Freshwater fish. Anyway, loved it back then. Back then it was so different, and I loved the service. Even back then I noticed the hospitality was amazing. Then we went in 2017, we had a blast, and then we just went, and that was like a whole different level.
Yeah, that was amazing.
We pushed that. We did, stayed at some beautiful places, themed the whole trip around design. And so design, we were seeing old houses, and then we went on a cruise at the end, which I had.
How's in here?
How?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Hey, what's up?
Our travel agent for part of that trip.
Yeah.
So he knows our travel style, and we can talk about travel agents as well.
I know. We should maybe have him on.
Oh, wow.
Talk about, do an IG live or something.
Oh, wow. All right. I like it.
Travel.
Okay, so what? Let me kind of turn it over to the crowd tonight. What? While you're pulling up something, I'll just give my final thoughts on Japan. So different than what we have in America. We are just scratching the surface of understanding it after being there 2 or 3 times, 4 times. The food, oh my God, we love it.
Gosh,
absolutely love it. the design, and also just the different cultural elements that force us to question some of our assumptions. For example, I like to think that I have a minimalist decor, but when we went there, we realized how much unnecessary stuff we actually had. Even in our apartment. We came back and I think we tossed out 4 garbage bags, like the first 2 days we were back.
Yeah, we are very inspired.
Very. And then I also grew to, boy, this is a strong word, like almost a sense of disgust of seeing some of the artificiality around our design aesthetic in America, where, for example, you ever look at the Restoration Hardware catalog and they have a ladder in someone's living room and they put a cashmere throw over it? And I'm like, why the fuck do you have a ladder in your living room? And it's just attached to a wall. It's not going anywhere. Why do you need a ladder to put a stupid blanket on? Why? I've grown to have a very visceral sense of disgust at unnecessarily contrived design.
Wow.
So thank you, Japan. And if I sound pretentious, so be it. What questions do we have, Cass?
Okay, so...
I'm so mad at those stupid ladders.
Oh, wait, I just clicked okay. What's your process for building your itinerary?
Okay, this is the one of the top questions I get. The first time we went on our honeymoon and we started posting all this stuff, the number one question was, how much does it cost? I was like, what kind of, I'm not going to answer that. The second time was this question, which I like, because it's more like, how can I apply this to my life? So the way that we do it is, first off, I really love going on these trips. And so I'm always reading different travel forums. I belong to a couple of Facebook groups and things like that. I read all the travel magazines, and anything that looks interesting, I file it away. And I cross-link it under travel and also travel/that country. So that later in the year, you and I, we always talk like, where should we go next year? And if we decide to go to Bhutan, I have a list of all the places in Bhutan and all the things to do there that look interesting. So that's the first step, is just like, I'm always out there hunting around for interesting stuff, and I see what looks good to me. Now, I will note that we don't really care about museums when we travel that much. Like, we rarely see them. And if we do, it's a specific type, a design one or a textile one. The last thing I want to do is go to a city and go to the TripAdvisor top 10 destinations to see. I'd have no interest in some of those things. But what are the things that you love when you go see a place, Cass?
Well, food, first of all.
Okay.
Like off the beaten path stuff.
Okay, so food.
I would also say, for me, the style. So just walking around to see the shops and stuff.
Style being like the clothing.
Yeah.
For me, it's I love beautiful hotels that great service and fit the aesthetic that I like. I like design. So what are the most beautifully designed places? I want to see the homes if possible, because I think that really gives you an insight. And then all the things you said, I'm down with.
Yeah.
All right, so that's, and then, just to finish the thought, if we have a complex trip, we might work with a travel agent. I can talk to you about what that entails and what it gets you. Otherwise, sometimes we just make our own itinerary and go.
Yeah.
Cass looks like she's ready to move on. Next question.
What city in India would you suggest to go for someone's first visit?
I'm glad you asked, because great question, and now I have the answer. The correct answer, start off in Udaipur, which is a beautiful lake city. It has my favorite hotel in the world, the Uday Vilas. And I choose that because it is calm and beautiful. It still has amazing Rajasthani cuisine. And it is India, and it has that small city, but it's not overwhelming. Once you get situated there, go to Jaipur. It's bigger. It has more things to see. It has a lot of awesome tourist things to see that we enjoy. We went there twice. And then there are so many other places you can go. But what I used to tell people was go to Delhi. And now I'm like, no, don't go to Delhi first. It's too crazy for your first city to land in. It would be like going to New York City times 20. So Udaipur and Jaipur are great 2 cities to start with.
Oh, and Agra too, right?
Oh, Agra, yeah. See the Taj Mahal, of
Yeah.
course. Those three you can do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Was it the Golden Triangle?
Yeah, Golden Triangle.
Okay, next question. Oh, have you ever been on a cruise?
I've been on. I went on 2 cruises as a teenager. I mentioned to everybody that for some reason all American moms love Alaskan cruises. Are there any moms watching tonight? Don't even bother telling me you love an Alaskan cruise. I already know. You all read the same Oprah Good Housekeeping article that said, must go to Alaska. I don't know where they get this, but we did that because my mom wanted to. It's actually really fun. It was really cool. The views were stunning. Before that, we had gone on a Carnival cruise, I think to Mexico or something. When we went on a cruise, by the way, it was something like $100 per night. I mean,
Really?
we had the room with no window.
Uh-huh.
I think there were 3 of us, maybe 4 to a room. So when you close the door and turn off the light, it is completely dark.
Wow.
So we would sleep until like 11 a.m. We're like, it's so dark in here. Hello. But what do we care, right? It was affordable for us as a family at that time. And, we had a blast. We're eating all this stuff. And then the third cruise we went on was just now, which was the very beautiful one that I posted photos of on Instagram recently.
Yeah, that was
In
out
Japan.
of this world.
Yeah, that was a whole craziness.
How do you track your expenses and receipts? I'm assuming when it comes to travel.
Oh, basically, that's a great question. So we know when we travel, like the last time we traveled was 6 weeks. So effectively every expense during that time on our credit cards is attributed to travel. And also we take out, I think, a little bit of cash, and so we credit that towards travel. Then, so that I think that's the big answer. If we need to break down some expenses between you and me, we kind of know what that is.
Yeah.
But that's how, would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, we were pretty close to our budget on this last trip, which was good.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did. Good job.
yeah.
Okay. Next question. Oh, so how far in advance do you start saving and planning for your travels?
Planning, I want to be booking anything that needs a big reservation, I would say maximum of 6 months out, like if not 8 months out. Because some of those hotels, they book up. Some of those restaurants, if you're going, or whatever tour, those book up. So 6 to 9 months, I think, is the sweet spot. If you get let's say on a trip for 6 weeks, Cass, what do we have like true reservations for? Maybe like 6 things.
Yeah.
Couple of hotels that are must-haves.
Yeah, hotels.
Couple of restaurants and tours, and the rest we knew we could fill it in as time got closer, or even just once we got there, we have open space. What was the other part of the question?
How far in advance do you start saving and planning? I think you answered that.
Yeah.
But so we use a blend of travel advisors and then to help with planning, and then actually Airbnb experiences.
Oh yeah, they're really good too.
Yeah, which has been awesome. We have used them a few times.
You know what I just realized? Remember how yesterday someone asked me what sweatshirt, like, where do I get your sweatshirt?
Uh-huh.
And it kind of irritates me because like that's just not asking the right question. I would say I got a little bit irritated when I was traveling and people were like, how do I get that experience you are doing right, that exact place? And like, sometimes I'll tell them if I happen to have the link handy, but to me, like, the joy of it is actually finding going through the journey to find the thing that's right for you yourself. So like, I could give you that exact thing, and I hope I have the link handy, and I will, but I think there's a joy in the process of reading a few travel sites and forums and looking around and saying, like, what do I actually enjoy? Do I want to go to a sword making class? If so, you can search sword making class, Japan, and find it. But I think there's a joy in the process instead of just getting the answer. Maybe that's why that irritates me. What do you think?
Yeah, well, you're very intentional about the things we spend our time on and all that. So I think you feel like it's yours, right? Like,
yeah, maybe I do feel a
which
little
is fair.
territorial.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
okay.
guys.
So don't ask for the links. I'm just kidding.
Don't send me.
Okay, next question. Can you speak Punjabi now? Say something.
No.
Really?
What is this, a
Come
circus?
on.
No, I'm not gonna.
Any funny travel mishaps?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a very good question. Let's think. Greece. Well,
I feel like there's something that happened.
Puerto Rico.
Oh my gosh, your passport story in Japan.
Oh, and yours, right? What happened to? Okay, so in Japan, we were fine. This is the first time we went together in 2017. We're at the airport coming back. In the airport in Japan, we had crossed through security, and we were kind of just like walking over to the area where our gate is. And I put my hands in my pockets. I'm like, "Where's my passport?" And I look at you. I'm like, "You have my passport, right?" And she's like, "No." I'm like, "Come on, babe. Like, no jokes right now." She's like, "I don't have it." And I'm like, and you know how you instantly start sweating?
Your
just
heart
like,
stops.
I'm like, "Oh!" And we go up to somebody and ask them for help, and you know, they try, but they're like calling, and then like, no, I don't know. It's just like we couldn't figure out what's going on, and they were like, "Just go sit down." And we're like, "Where's my passport?" And then
You were really scared.
yeah, because I'm like, if I don't have this, I don't know what to do. I guess it wasn't part of the plan. I didn't factor that into my model. And then, you know, our flight was about to board in like 45 minutes, and then 30 minutes later, somebody comes up to me and they go, "Here's your passport." And I was like, how did that happen?
So it's okay to lose your passport in Japan.
Yeah, just throw
That's
it anywhere.
The one place
Just throw
you
it.
can lose it.
But let me tell an even better story. This is truly bonkers.
Oh yes.
Oh my God. Okay, so here we are in Japan. This is just a few months ago. And we're on a train coming back from somewhere to somewhere, and the bullet train.
Mm-hmm.
We get up, we get off the train, and like 2 hours later, Cass goes, "Where's my iPad?" And then she goes, "Do you have my iPad?" And I do the same. "No, I don't have it." And then she goes, "I left it on the train." And I was like, ah. So she left her iPad on the bullet train. And then she starts like getting frantic, whatever. She Googles around, and then the next day she goes, "Will you go to the Tokyo train station to go to the Lost and Found?" And I was like, "All right, I'll go." And so I was already out, so I went to the Tokyo train station. Okay, before I went, I did a little Googling on Lost and Found, and on the Japanese website for Lost and Found, it says, if you lose something on the train, you have a very good chance of recovering it. That's a government website saying it. Our government can't do shit. And this is the Japanese government saying, you have a very good chance. Oh, I'm like, what? So, you know, I'm in Japan, right? Everything I'm filming. Ooh, how's this gonna go on my IG story? I go to the Lost and Found. I walk inside, and I have all the information. What train were we going? Which direction? What seat? He smiles. He pulls out a form. I fill it out. He goes, "Just a moment." Now I have the video of this. He goes in the back. He comes back less than 60 seconds later. He hands me the iPad. I open it. It is recovered, and it's 100% charged. I'm like, and I know you never charge any of your devices. I'm like, they charged our iPad. That's so cool. Do you understand how ridiculous it is to lose an iPad in a different city? The next day, we went to a different city. They had it. It took 60 seconds, and it was charged.
Yeah, it was incredible.
We were like,
we just need to move here.
yeah, we need to move here.
Yeah.
Okay, that was amazing.
That was, yeah. So it's okay to lose stuff in Japan.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
All right, last question. Oh, okay. This is a good question. Do you ever travel back to the same place, or do you always look for a new experience?
We do. We went, this year we were in India, and we decided after the Ranthambore, the tiger safari that we went on with my mom and aunt, you made a good recommendation. Let's have some time for just the two of us. And so we went to Jaipur, which we had been to before. And what was your reasoning on why to go there?
Oh, to Jaipur? Because we really loved it the first time.
Yeah.
And I also thought it could be a mix of like city stuff and then relaxing.
So we did. We really loved going back to a few of the same places. We took a photograph with the same famous photographer, and we hired our same tour guide in Jaipur, and he took us around. Yeah, there's some places we've gone back to or would go back to. Rome,
Yes.
we really loved.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I think I really loved hearing you say when we were at the end of our honeymoon that last night in Thailand, and you said, normally at the end of a trip like this, I would be really sad, but I know that if we ever want to come back here, we can. And that was the best because it was total abundance. And it's true. We know if we want to go back somewhere, we can.
Yeah. That's
So,
my rich life.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we don't, that's okay too. We experienced it. So, yeah, I loved it. All right. So, anyway, why did we talk about this tonight? We talked about it because I want to, in these fireside chats, I want to talk about some of the immediate things we need to do right now with our money. I want to talk about some new ways of thinking about business and personal finance and psychology. But I also don't want to get stuck in talking about all the short-term things that we need to do right now. I want time for us all to dream. And for anyone who has been stuck in short-termism or has been around people that make you feel like you have to, oh my God, this is all crazy, it's going on. Sometimes life is crazy, but if it's crazy for too long, if you find yourself constantly being overwhelmed, then something is wrong. You got to make a change. And so that is why tonight I wanted to shift gears and really talk about places we've been and hopefully inspire you to think about where you might want to go next. And whether that happens in 6 months or a year and a half, nobody knows that. But I know that I'm still dreaming. I'm still making a list of the places I want to go, that I want us to go together, and the things we want to do. And I hope that everyone takes this opportunity to really dream about where you might want to go when we are able to. So I appreciate you coming and watching. I'm on YouTube where I'm posting all of these fireside chats. Please tag a friend. If you've ever, maybe your partner, and you've ever talked about where you want to go travel together or a new place, you know, some of the places I mentioned, Greece, Positano, India, Japan. And just a different way of approaching it. You know, never thought about using a travel advisor, hotels, this and that. And I will see you